If you are from the Southwest or anywhere that only has two seasons, don't forget to honor the cycles and the seasons of life. I say this because I am living in Montreal for the first time and I'm experiencing not only my first Montreal winter, but also my first Montreal spring. And it's interesting because even though Montreal spring is very wet right now, and dreary and looking more like a Vancouver and the Pacific Northwest, there's an internal transition that's happening. And it's, I say it's interesting because it's really an ode to how much we are a part of nature. Just naturally, we started cleaning out our closets and switching out the winter clothes for the spring clothes and getting rid of clothes and doing spring cleaning and, you know, just moving and shifting things in our home environment. And then, like, even myself right now wearing this shirt, I mean, given it's Easter, but just remembering that we are a part of nature and that we need to honor our cycles and our seasons. And I say this because, as someone who's from the Southwest, born and raised in Arizona, we either got hot or really hot. And also, not only that, being specifically in San Diego for 5 years, I don't think that we honored our cycles and our seasons as much as other parts of the world are able to. And I also want to acknowledge there's other parts of the world where I think it's like wet or dry or wet and humid and like whatever. So there's other places in the world that doesn't get the experience of all four seasons. And this is my second time around of getting the chance to experience that. And so the last time I did was when I was in university, and this is the second time I'm getting to, 15 years later. And this, despite how dreary the winters can be, it's just a reminder of what nature is like. And I just want to remind folks who are in an area where they don't get to experience the seasons as predominantly, it doesn't mean that we shouldn't honor them and recognize that we are a part of them. And so just because we may not experience it externally as obviously, to still honor it internally. And again, I say this being from the Southwest and being from Phoenix, like, and specifically in a place where it's always sunny and somewhere as beautiful as San Diego, it's really easy to get caught up in just go, go, go and being productive and being always doing something and being action oriented. And I say this because I never, not I never, but I don't remember feeling like that slowness was something that was like being honored or being um just experienced. It just felt like this pressure to always produce or this pressure to always be creating or this pressure to just always be doing something or a part of something and moving and shaking. And I think that, when you're in San Diego specifically, like the weather is so perfect. It's 75 and sunny like all the time. And don't get me wrong, when winter comes, like you can feel the change in the weather, but it's not so prominent enough where it literally forces you to slow down, to pause and to rest. And as after experiencing my first winter here, like, I'm first off, I want to say like how proud I am of myself. I think I did pretty well for someone who's from the Southwest. Like externally, I did well, but full transparency, the internal stuff started coming up too. Excuse me while I fix this. It's just gonna bug me. Yeah. Well, I guess that's just how the shirt is made. Okay, that's better. But there was a lot of internal stuff that came, and how to have the tools and the resources and the support to be able to move through those internal changes, And I think a lot of times when people think of winter, we think that like nothing is happening. They think, okay, the trees are bare, the snow is falling, and there's nothing here. There's no fruit to enjoy, and we're all just nesting and we're in our little caves. But recognizing that within nature, like for me, it's seeing that things are happening like under the ground just because leaves have fallen and foliage and all that stuff is doing its thing underground, that doesn't mean that nothing is happening. And I feel like that is synonymous for like our internal worlds. And so I'm just like feeling really grateful to have nature to remind me and to remind us like, hey, like you do not have to always be on the go. You don't always have to be producing. You don't always have to be doing something. You don't always have to be, moving and shaking and grooving. And again, I wish that when you're in a place that doesn't experience the seasons as predominantly, that I wish that the conversations and the culture and the people that you're around can say like, hey, like we're allowed to slow down and we're allowed to rest and we're allowed to just settle and just be. And yeah, I just feel like, when you don't get to experience that, you feel a lot of shame in the times that you're feeling tired. But you have to recognize, like, yeah, if you're in a place like where I came from, like, and your people are going and they're like passing you or whatever the case, like, that's not really like normal, and I say what's normal is what's closely aligned with nature. And yeah, I'm saying this for my past self. My past self was trying to prove something to somebody, was trying to, be with the in crowds, was trying to, just keep up with people and to, and not feel some types of way for like falling behind. And, sometimes I think like, oh, like this is where it's happening. This is where all the happenings are happening. And I don't wanna, like, not honor that just because on the outside it doesn't look like something's happening, it doesn't mean that things aren't happening on the inside. And, what I love about the experience of external seasons, it's the reminder of our internal seasons. And for me, as someone who feels like they had been in a winter for a really long time, like, the 8 years that I was sharing with y'all, like, obviously, we don't it's different for everybody. Everyone's seasons are gonna be different for everybody, but it did feel like for me that, like, 2018 was, like, a fall season where I was like, "Alright, like, I'm leaving social media, I'm, like, starting to slow down, like, I'm popping in and out." But then for the past I would say for the past 2 to 4 years, I was, like, really deep in a winter season, and now I truly feel like I'm in a spring season. That's why I'm showing up. That's why I'm doing this 100-day talent challenge. That's why I was able to do the 30-day challenge because I feel like, like, after almost 10 years, it's like, yeah, like, now I'm in a personal season of spring, and so that I'm ready to bloom and to share the growth that has happened internally and underground. And so yeah, I just wanna just remind people, especially because I know that the people I do know are from the Southwest, like, you are allowed to rest, you are allowed to slow down, you are allowed to take time for yourself. This is not a race, there is no finish line, like, people are all working at their own pace, and I just hope that you have the inner knowing that we are a part of nature and that you work at your own pace and that you are in your own process and that it doesn't need to keep up with anybody around you and no societal pressures from anybody else, no familial pressures from anybody else. Like, we're all going to get to where we need to go to as long as we just take it one step at a time, one day at a time, one moment at a time. And, obviously, given the ways that the world is right now, like we are living during a time that no humans that are alive today have ever seen. And so, yeah, it's going to take some processing. It's going to take some observation. It's going to take some reflection and it's going to take some um thought as to how to move forward, how to move forward more thoughtfully, more consciously. Like we cannot move in the ways that we have been for the past 100 years. What our parents taught us not doesn't necessarily work today. What our grandparents taught us doesn't necessarily will work today, at least on the external part. And again, going back to the internal part, where it's just like there's things that have inherently worked for a millennia, and so, how do we get back to that, to at least get back to basics? How do we get back to our foundation? How do we get back to our anchors? How do we get back to grounding ourselves and being grounded in who we truly are, not only as individuals, but as human beings as a whole? And I get to ask those questions because of an external winter. And so if you're in a place that doesn't experience a very obvious external winter and a very obvious external summer and fall and spring, I hope that you can tap into yourself and ask, where am I at really? What season am I in really? And do I feel these external pressures from these groups that I'm a part of or what I'm looking at online? Or am I able to be honest with myself and say, I'm actually in a season that's asking me to slow down and to rest and to reflect and to reset and recognizing again, like it's going to be different for everybody. And the time period and how long it takes is going to be different for everybody. But this was just a reminder, that we are part of nature, that seasons and cycles and rhythms is all a part of life. And to ask yourself the questions, what season am I in? What season am I in and how can I honor it? And how can I show up for it? Most importantly. Uh yeah, at the end of the day, I have this quote on my wall. It says, it's like really far. So let me just like think really deeply here. It says, whatever you do, do well. For when you go to the grave, there will be no work or planning or knowledge or wisdom. And so again, you can rest well. You can produce well. You can create well. You can play well. You can work well. You can reflect well, but from dust to dust, when we all get there, just as long as you did what you did well, and it doesn't necessarily always mean with work. And yeah, just to honor yourself, your cycle, your seasons, and know that it's not the end till it is, and that everything's going to be okay. Even though that may not seem like it all the time, but everything's going to be okay. And if you are in a winter season, that's more especially for you than anybody, because I know what it's like. I'm just coming out of my winter season. It didn't feel like it was ever going to end. It didn't feel like I was ever going to see the light at the end of the tunnel, but it comes, and it comes in its own timing. But I think what's most important is the intentionality each day, the thoughtfulness each day, and just putting in an effort, just trying and showing up for it, and just taking it one step at a time. So, again, if you're in the Southwest, there are seasons in the rest of the world, and there are internal seasons and there's external seasons. And I hope that you honor both of them. All right, y'all. I'll see y'all in the next video. Oh, I mean, I guess, do the things in the descriptions and stuff. If you want to know more, if you want to get to know each other better, if you want to stay connected, all the links are in the description below. All right. I'll see y'all soon.